The time is 5 p.m. at East Amherst in New York State, USA East Time. Date is 7th December 2015. Now I'll be taking R14. This is the last talk in my series of talks on the subject of meeting God Almighty. So in this talk R14, I'll be summing up whatever has been talked about in talks 1 to 13. Again, I have made out notes and will be trying to read out from that so that proper sequence is maintained and time taken is also short. It is hoped that the 4 steps given by me will be helpful to the genuine seekers. These steps are an organized method to rise in spirituality to the level of meeting God Almighty. These are based on my own experience of reaching to this level. I sincerely feel that these steps will be helpful to all persons living at any place in this world because these are not based on any religion, any scripture or the teachings of any guru. God Almighty is of all of us and we are all His unique creations and hence have a direct connection with Him. Therefore, whatever methods have been given by me are universal and can be used by anyone on this earth. So the 4 steps discussed are, again I will be taking these things in short. Step 1. It is given in talks R6, R7, R8 and R9. These were introduced in R5. And my talks R1 to R3 are on general matters so that one can easily take the path of spirituality. So coming back to step 1, it requires the seeker to take God Almighty's mantra, that is, I will become a proper human being. This mantra commences one's spiritual journey, if not already going on. It is a very powerful mantra and has the capacity to take a person to God Almighty. Now, step 2, it is given in talk R10. It requires one to become friendly with God Almighty and watching His creations. This is a very interesting step. By taking this step, one becomes nearer to God Almighty and starts understanding Him much better. Step 3 is given in talk R11. It requires one to self-realize at least one truth of God Almighty. It has been recommended by me to first try the truth of He has made each person different than others. Self-realization of this truth makes one to understand others well and reduces conflict. Due to this, one can himself judge the level of his self-realization. Once this truth is realized, others could also be realized. Such realization of God Almighty's truths bring the seeker very near to Him because the seeker starts living on God Almighty's truths. Then last step is step number 4. It is given in talk R12. It is the last and final step in an organized pursuit of God Almighty. It is about requesting God Almighty to appear, to give His darshan to the seeker. Besides dealing with 4 steps to meet Him, many revelations have been made in these talks. I came to know of these matters through my internal journey, as I had not known these before. That is why I gave the name of revelation to those things. But if it is found out that some of these are available already, then my revelation, that particular revelation, will turn out to just a reiteration instead of revelation. So that could be substituted if that happens. And in the process, if someone feels bad, then I would say, I am sorry, my dear friends. Now let me summarize the revelations. I have found out there are about 23 revelations. So number 1 is, it is given in talk R1. It says we are born in big teams, birth after birth. Very few go away and very few new ones join. Thus, all those who come in our life have past connection with us and will have this connection in future also. So this thing should be kept in mind, and that is why I discussed on the matter of relations that we should not be breaking. The number 2 revelation, it is given in R1 again. The difference between 2 persons, one having met God Almighty and another having met Him virtually, is that the one who has met Him remains blissful. In Hindi I said the word is mast. That is a very appropriate word, you see, that I am masti. So it remains blissful, the one who has really met God Almighty. The one who has met Him virtually through or is very near to God Almighty feels discomfortable if he is taken out of the work which gives him feeling of nearness to God Almighty. So this is the difference. One is must, another he has to continue doing that good work. Number 3 revelation, it is given in R3. It is about God Almighty's guarantee that the one brought by Him on this earth with roti kapra makan, that is bread, clothing and housing. So that who has been brought by Him with this thing and continues to have it without doing anything is guaranteed that he will continue to have it till his death. This is a big revelation, my dear friends. Number 4 revelation is given in R4. It is about the fallacy of dividing cosmic time cycle in different ages with present age, that Kali. It is applicable to India, with Kali, that is present time, being very bad. So this is not true. With this, the associated big revelation is that the inside of human beings remains unchanged from ages to ages, and the good and bad traits remain the same in all ages due to God Almighty's wish. If He wishes, He may change in few. But there is no mass scale change with the time cycle. That in this particular age, say somebody may say from 1700 AD to 1800 BC, people will be found like this. From 1800 BC to this, people will be found like this. Outwardly they may have found different, but inside, my dear friends, God Almighty is keeping that authority with Him. They remain the same. The proportion of good, ordinary and bad persons also remains the same in all ages. Revelation number 5, it is given in R5, the method of meeting God Almighty through 4 steps is a big revelation in itself. So that has been given there, 4 steps. Revelation number 6, it is given in R5. It is a big revelation that we have freedom of thoughts only. When any thought comes out of mind and takes a physical shape, it becomes God Almighty's wish or design, not ours. It will be very helpful in realizing God Almighty. Number 7 revelation is given in R5. It says that the vibrations or charge of other people, even great ones, affects us very little, enforcing, coaxing us to do something. But our own power to do such things is enormous, subject to, of course, His wish, God Almighty's wish. Number 8 revelation, it is given in R6. It is that when we avoid doing a wrong thing, though willed by God Almighty, by using our freedom of thought, He gives us positive marks. When we do something good, we don't get any marks, as it was His wish. But if we use our freedom of thought and not do that good work as willed by God Almighty, then we get negative marks. There is a semi-revelation, I say, so I have given it number 8a. It is given in R7. Very briefly, the main happening given in my novel is described. So, I described out my novel. Formation of world government and friendly visit of aliens in future may be taken as semi-revelation. Well, that also has some meaning, my dear friends. Number 9 revelation, it is given in R8 as well as the start of R9 and also R10. It is about God Almighty's involvement in our relations with all others. This I have spoken otherwise also, that we are born in big teams. Number 10 revelation is, it is given in R9 and at the start of R10. It is that one can change his destiny at the time of birth by not doing many bad things as per God's design, by using his freedom of thought. Number 11 revelation is, it is given in R9. One can check from certain symptoms as to whether he is moving well in spirituality. Revelation number 12, it is given at the end of R9. It is a simple revelation that spirituality does not mean that we run away from our worldly duties. We should know that this world is God Almighty's big laboratory, and we should make best use of it by doing many experimentations here. Then Revelation number 13, it is given in R10. It is about becoming friendly with God Almighty by going back to our simplicity of childhood. It may look very inconsequential, but such a thing, being told to be an important step in meeting God Almighty, has not been brought to light with its due importance. That is why I say it is a revelation. Revelation number 14, it is given in R10. It tells about various gains one gets when one becomes friendly or is nearer to God Almighty. Things move in such a way that others feel that it is due to our, if we are God realized, your aura or vibration or charge. But the fact is that it is actually God Almighty's grace. Revelation number 15, it is given in R11. It gives the meaning of self-realization to be the awareness of something which gets embedded in our soul, conscience and mind, the sources, power sources, which trigger all our actions. Of course, the biggest power source is God Almighty. So that is the realization, that it should get embedded into all these power sources. Then we start living on that. Number 16 revolution, it is given in R11. When a soul carries its carrier, that is body, to the level of meeting God, there is a strong likelihood of the soul getting merged in God Almighty. The theory that souls remain separate and all the time and are present, I have found that to be not true. Souls keep on varying, it depends upon the God Almighty's will, and souls go and get merged also in God Almighty. God Almighty sends some especially created souls without the freedom of thought, please note it, without the freedom of thought, for doing only good or bad. These souls also get merged in God Almighty after shedding their body on the earth, after doing their work. The journey of normal souls carrying different bodies, one after another, is like an universal auto engine which moves from one damaged vehicle to another new body of the vehicle and finally ends up in a scrapyard. Only difference is that soul goes on getting new experiences and all that, etc. And when it is about to merge with God Almighty, then it takes that body to God Almighty. So most of them at that stage they get merged. Number 17 revelation, it is given in R12. It is the final act when one meets God Almighty. So all those things are given there. Number 18 revelation is, it is given in R12. It is towards the end of this R12. It is about God Almighty's darshan to me. So that whole thing is a revelation. Revelation number 19, it is given in R13. It is about the first change in me after God Almighty's darshan. Then Revelation number 20, it is also in R13. It is about God Almighty's direction to me that I need not pray to Him for self as He is taking care Himself. Number 21 revelation, it is given in R13 towards the end of first quarter of the talk. It is that there is no power other than God Almighty, and it is He who does all good and bad things. So you can yourself understand. Revelation number 22, it is towards the end of the first half of R13. It is that I did not find places like heaven and hell, and therefore these may be imaginary places. Last revelation number 23, it is given towards the end of R13. It is the description of 4 types of God Almighty's gracious gifts to me. Now coming back to all those revelations, whatever has been talked about, in case of one revelation that is stated above as number 6 and given in R9, it is about our freedom of thought being the only independence given to us by God Almighty. I would clarify a little. Understanding it will be easy for general public. They would think that they have a mind and have always been using it and doing as per this. So there is nothing new except that what they do has God Almighty's wish as per this revelation. So they may feel happier. However, after knowing this revelation, they will become cautious not to do bad things, to earn positive to earn positive points, because if they don't do bad things, they earn positive points from God Almighty. And would not stop themselves from doing good things, because if they do, they will get negative points. So they may, no doubt, wish that God Almighty should not have given negative points for not doing good as per the revelation. Because if you don't do the good will by the God Almighty, you get negative points. This was about general public. But many learned persons, before accepting this, would be anxious to know the mechanism of the interaction between their own thoughts and God Almighty's wish within their minds in connection with the impending physical action. So naturally they will be anxious to know this thing. So let it be known that this mechanism is really complex. I am not sure if I will be able to explain to the extent the learned person would want to be satisfied. Still, I will state that what I have understood is this. It is that the mind always gets God Almighty's signals or vibrations through soul to drive a person towards his destiny. Ordinary persons go by this, and their mind makes their bodies do God Almighty's bidding. But please know that the soul has been moving from bodies to bodies and has its own inertia and wish developed in its long journey. You see, soul also has some independence like we have for our thought. It has freedom for this. Therefore, though it is duty bound to transmit God Almighty's signals to mind, which are of normal strength, but it can send its own signals of higher strength through conscience to the mind, and therefore can override God Almighty's wishes. As I said, you see, this mind, that through our mind don't we stop that thing. So this is the process. The moment it happens that some God Almighty's wish has not been done, God Almighty knows the same immediately and gives positive or negative marks as the case may be, and retunes the destiny. By the way, God Almighty in such cases already knows that He has given some choices to the person, and he may take one choice, another choice, so he is always ready to watch him and then give him marks and retune his new destiny based on that particular act. While going through step 2, I am coming to another matter, while going through step 2, it is hoped that the seekers will see God Almighty's creations in the animal world where carnivorous ones eat other animals, and that there are creatures like serpents, scorpions, sharks in the sea which could cause fatality to human beings also. So non-violence in this world is ruled out. Non-violence in the human world may also continue. If not for anything, then at least for defending nations or during saving public from violent criminals. So take this in your stride. Similarly, do not be too choosy or sticky on people's eating habits, drinking habits, and other things. Such habits, till they make one an improper human being, are not going to stop their spiritual journey. Do not expect all others to become like you. Let them be what they are. You should better concentrate on your spiritual journey. While moving up the scale of humanity, give priority to doing good things instead of engaging your mind's concentration to tackle your bad traits habits. It is very simple. However, do take up those bad habits or traits which take only a little thought of yours. Why I am suggesting this is because when you do one good, its opposite bad automatically goes away. Like solving exam papers, tackle very stubborn bad traits and habits towards the end. I am a person like anyone else, my dear friends. What I did was put sincere efforts first, similar to taking mantra, efforts similar to this mantra before its discovery, and after the discovery very sincerely as per the mantra, and having God Almighty's grace the moment mantra is taken. In fact, all those who take the mantra of God Almighty that I'll become a proper human being are poised to move well in spirituality. Only need is to take this mantra. In the end, I strongly suggest that always try to find out God Almighty's wish in any opportunity. Even leaving a job for business or for retirement, or leaving a business and retiring, if financial arrangements are there to pull on. So if that type of opportunity is coming, that also just see. If you get strong signals, even for a drastic step, to be God Almighty's will, then take a plunge. Be ready for the risk. But if you just pray to the God Almighty before that, and if you have already risen to a good height in the scale of humanity, my dear friends, I can tell you that you will not be the loser. Only thing, be on the lookout that what you are getting. You will be getting much more. So my dear friends, this is the end of the series of talks from my side. I wish you all the very best, and to those genuine seekers who like to take this path to God Almighty, to meet Him. And I wish that they succeed. And I have full hope that they will succeed. This is because in this method there is a whole emphasis on doing all that what the God Almighty wishes from His human creations. So all the very best. Thank you.